link in the chat here, so if anyone wants to see or review it. Okay, cool. There it is. All right. Yeah, if you share and I'll just go along and read it.
There we are. No, damn. Okay. How do I?
Gotta go to the top, I think.
I go to full screen here. Okay, cool. And how do I get the people away? Anyway, so I'll scroll to the top, I'd say. I think I zoomed a little bit. I can zoom a little bit more, so I think that's even better. Like I said, I haven't been through it, but it starts and looks really fine. So I think it's generally, I mean, for people, we last week you already, or basically the last two meetings, you showed already what Finanzgoblin started creating with this new valuation matrix,
Right.
and this here is now basically a is it already? No, it's an idea. It's not yet a proposal, but it's an idea on how
Yep.
the grant committee would basically like to or think to update the framework and make it better, basically.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I haven't like it wouldn't be necessarily an official proposal, but I think when you put in, or when we as a community put in for the update for the EVM voting and stuff on the governance, we would probably propose this at the same time to
Yeah.
try to keep votes together.
Yep.
I mean, if this sort of suffices, I can try to maybe make it more simplified and then have a link to here or something. But I did try to go through and put a link to the specification, like for anything that was specifically, hey, this is written in the specification and we propose this, versus there was a few that were like, there's just there's nothing in the specification that sort of describes sort of think like freedom of investing for yield type
Yes.
thing.
Yeah. This would be additions
So
then.
so
Yeah.
that's
So yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So I tried to, and I was trying to look at it in a to really just simplify it if we can,
Yes.
in any bit.
Yeah. I think
Doesn't mean any of the things.
yeah. I mean, for a proposal
I was just
anyway, we would need to write a complete new, or basically a new version of the specification. But this is then something you can put as a link into the proposal, because I think it's always
Mhm,
much better to
mhm.
have it in this way. Yeah, basically explaining the differences, and then have a link to the full new form of how the specification would look. Have it part of the proposal and part of the vote that then will happen. But for posing the thing and getting a discussion going, it's best to really just highlight all the changes and leave all the unchanged things out of the discussion and just have that attached then later on.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, so if it looks like, I mean, people could have watched the video last week and try to reflect some of the comments made, and we can go through if we give it another week and then no one's given any comments. I see you've got a couple comments there, so I can update to that, and then then I can start working on the GitHub update at that point, I think.
Yeah.
You put a
Yeah,
good
let me go through.
question
So
under.
basically there
Okay.
is the first thing I think is about updating the name in general to make
Hmm.
the committee more generalized, because I think we all envision to merge this together with the IOTA treasury that will come, and so that there will be basically the Tangle DAO taking care of that thing. One thought I just had was just for, I don't know, for um, I'm still not sure if it would make sense to um, just for formal reasons have two committees under um, the Marshall Island DAO, so one Shimmer committee, one IOTA committee. I would even say the same people can be in it, but just basically for, let's say, accounting, things like this. So you would have basically, I don't know, would have 1 week, you would have a Shimmer Grand Committee meeting, and the next week you would have an IOTA Grand Committee meeting, even if it would be the same persons. Potentially it could be beneficial to have this still under the DAO, but have basically install a second committee. Um, Potentially the community would also maybe want a little bit different focus for IOTA. That's what I thought. Yeah. So let's say Shimmer is more experimental. You can do stuff in DeFi and yield farming, but maybe potentially the community would favor to have a different focus for grants in IOTA, and then maybe it would make sense to have a second grant committee. Yeah. Um, but I don't know what people. Was just coming to my mind, thinking about maybe even also, I don't know.
In
I have a
the
bigger grant committee for IOTA, or maybe they wanna add other people into it that are more, I don't know, IoT focused or things like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we could get some community sentiment and voting, I think that's kind of what we're doing anyways, where um, as it's evolved, that the Shimmer network is very DeFi focused, kind of degen focused. Okay, now we're supporting that, or we're supporting testing things like
Yeah.
sort of some C++. We're funding some developers to create some C++ libraries. This is something really that the EDF and the TIA don't, unless there's full out hard data from the community that, hey, we want these libraries and we're going to use them. They really don't support that, which is understandable because they just want to know that that's going to be. So we take a little bit more of an experimental role in the Shimmer side, as well as to test it to see, okay, do we want to support C++ on IOTA mainnet? Well, if it's built with a Shimmer grant and then no one uses the libraries, of course we're not. So we're kind of take it as this testing side. And then if the community and the IF come out and, show sort of, okay, Shimmer's for degen DeFi, and IOTA mainnet's going to be more for corporate IO, industrial, 2.0, et cetera. And these are things that we actually went through and said, do we want to support these things? They're more larger grants and long-term return. And we don't. We really don't support it with the Shimmer grant, unless it's like a library that could support something like that. Um, Whereas if that's the focus for mainnet, then we would certainly put that focus. On the accounting side, it's interesting because this last week I looked at the Soon token. So on the Tangle Treasury website, the tangletreasury.org, I added a link to the Shimmer Explorer that holds the Soon tokens for the community. And then I was thinking, okay, now I have to put that in the accounting. So I added some automations to where basically I can record the transaction and the asset. So as we gain assets, any deposit or expense, credit or debit, just to Soon tokens will be shown basically as a line.
Mm.
So then if we were to manage IOTA tokens, then that's going to have their own debit and credit columns. And then what would probably happen if to handle the USDT payments and expenses is we would probably I would have to create two tables. One would be USDT holdings of the Shimmer treasury, and one would be USDT holdings of the IOTA treasury, because that they would have to be fully separated. And then we do have an ability to separate everything out in Airtables. So basically, if a proposal comes in and is either direct to the wants to build on IOTA mainnet, of course that would come out of the IOTA treasury.
Yeah.
If it's Shimmer network, come out of the Shimmer network. If it's one that's on both, we would probably, I would say, as a committee, look at what is this most relevant to, or just kind of every other one, switch it up, if it's something that's kind of fits both visions. But that way, one, the grants, and then basically I track grant proposal review time. So then the only thing would be either A, we could divide up the Treasury weekly meetings, but I mean, in those weekly meetings, we'd be doing both. I
Yes,
don't
yes.
I don't know. I mean, if the committee itself salary, I think, is running around 300,000 a year. Um, I mean, if people
Yeah.
wanted to double that, they could. But
Yeah,
I think
yeah, I don't think it would.
we could
Yeah.
handle it. If anything, we would just add a reviewer if we started to get more,
Yes.
if we
Yeah.
couldn't handle the workload,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
also.
I agree with that. I'd also say let's first get it going, and I don't know how long have we elected you for, a year only, or
Yeah,
wasn't that?
up to
Yeah.
March, and then you guys
So I think by the time we are doing re-elections, we can reconsider if the team is
Mhm.
still good enough. But honestly, I think this is sufficient for both committees.
I also
And if
don't
we
think.
if we notice there's a problem, then
Mm.
we'd have to cast a vote to essentially add a sixth reviewer.
Mm.
Right. And I think it's a good point, though. I can start building that into the Airtables now so that it's ready for whenever this vote was to take happen and whenever EVM was to go to mainnet. But let's just say, for instance, we had a few months before yearly elections and EVM went to IOTA mainnet. We had access to the treasury. We would see, I don't think there will be much demand right off the bat. And some of this could be tested running both treasuries at the same time. And then,
Mm.
because we'll have to do a yearly election governance vote anyways. So then we could
Yeah.
always, like you said, Verna, adjust at that time based
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
operating from hopefully sometime.
Yeah. I think maybe
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just it
I,
would
I
just
think that
yeah. Go, Werner. Go.
yeah. I have to say I think that 5 reviewers is well enough unless we like get a lot of tier 1 requests or tier 2. Because I think essentially even if there's going to be so much demand, we are going to run into funding issues really quick.
Well,
Yeah.
that's really what's happening. I mean, we've had,
Mm.
man, last I checked, I think was 2 weeks ago, we had basically something like 3.7 million in requests. That's everything. All the grants together, people have requested 3.7 million, and we've approved like 350,000. And even with that, now this is more given the price of Shimmer. If we were like to approve just a few others, we'd, considering with running costs for the rest of the year and legal contracts and everything, admin costs, we'd almost be down to nothing. And I've used the treasury up, and it's it's more right now every week is trying to make sure that we're funding only the most projects that we think should, and really archiving as much as we can until either the Shimmer price goes up, or just trying to draw out, make sure that we don't use a treasury up, especially before EVM launches. I remember we had discussions way before that was, um, do we even want to start funding projects before EVM launches, in the sense that we don't know if there's going to be an issue, right? And not in a bad way, but EVM went through testing and some issues found out. So like maybe good thing we didn't fund too many projects to start building, especially from outside the community, because they would have came over, start building, and then all of a sudden, like, wait, what? The retest, like the network has to be reset and blah blah blah. So we're really more on a hold right now, and I think the same. I think that the IOTA Treasury will be in the same way, in the sense that just because EVM goes live on IOTA mainnet, and then all of a sudden there's access to the treasury, it's going to take time for a lot of these projects, a lot of these large scale projects that like the energy NIP and identity is going to be coming out, and uh, it's not like they're just going to take EVM and take their projects to the next level at a snap of a fingers. It's going to take time. So I think to some extent, the IOTA price will probably be at a lower amount, meaning the treasury will be at the lower amount, and I would hope that the community doesn't say, well, just spend, 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 and then by the time things really take off, there's no money in the treasury. So, um, yeah, I'm always
Yeah.
a fiscally, I guess you could say, but
Yeah. No, my thinking was just basically to have a separate specification for the IOTA grant committee, let's say it like this, so that we could basically really customize potential rules or procedures between Shimmer and IOTA handling of things. Yeah, like I said, same committee, but basically you have two potentially a little bit different ways of operating the grants. Like I said, you can take more risky stuff with the Shimmer things, can be more playful. You could focus on different areas in Shimmer and IOTA. So for that, I think it would make sense basically to have two slightly different specifications under the same Tangle DAO. Yeah, that's I think what I would propose. Or well, let's put it up to a discussion in the community. So in this way, the
yeah,
community could always customize the way the Shimmer treasury is handled and the way the IOTA treasury is handled, and you wouldn't be forced to handle both things exactly the same way.
well, and I think the experience is, does the specification want to like make it so rigid as into how the committee should act, or give a little bit of freedom and trust that they're elected by the community, that they're always coming on a weekly basis, like to these governance meetings, and I think that's what I've noticed, in a sense, like, it's it gets really complicated and really long and really detailed, and it's like and to some extent it almost could be like, I mean, we're electing these people based on their experience, or the program lead, myself, or future program lead. But if it's everything, to me is like my foundational ideology. If it's always transparent and every action taken can be seen by the community, and that program lead is always coming to this weekly community, if that program lead is doing something like, let's say through discussions, and it's like, hey, this is the vision of the IOTA and this is the vision of Shimmer, and we want the committee to kind of fund accordingly to those visions. And if the program lead is taken in a totally different direction, and they bring it up to that program lead in these community, these governance weekly meetings, and then that committee doesn't follow, then it's just transparent. So then either, hey, you're not following, and yeah, so I think it's just a balance of making it not for long and complicated, but also not too free, in the sense that, some say, you got to deal with it for 1 year until you you reelect. Like that also shouldn't be. So I don't know. Yeah, because I think that was one, when we initially issued it, people were a little, wow, this is really long. This is super detailed and good, and it was good because we didn't know how it could kick off in that first year. I mean, if you had someone that was a bad actor, they could take advantage of it. Maybe if it wasn't very detailed. So, yeah, I don't know. It's
Uh,
just it's an interesting
or maybe,
balance
yeah,
between.
or maybe just start basically. So let's say, okay, there would be a election. IOTA funds are coming in. Basically, start with a copy of the Shimmer framework, but basically just have basically two documents. Yeah, they start
Mhm.
from the same level. But whenever the community decides, okay, we want to change something in IOTA or change something in Shimmer, but not in IOTA, you could just basically upload those documents. Um, and
True.
have basically just different steering wheels where you could adjust some, even if it's just some small things like tiers or whatever. Yeah, you potentially don't want to have everything exactly the same for both treasuries. Yeah, likely IOTA treasury will be much larger from the money that
Mm.
is in. So potentially the tiers could be bigger and things like this, but then you always have just one doc and it doesn't fit on this one and doesn't fit on this one. So just basically have two docs, um, two rule sets that likely start from the exact same level, but in the future the community can always say, okay, we want to change some stuff in how the IOTA is operating. Yeah, make higher grants. I don't know, make it more difficult, more easy. Yeah.
Mm. Just quick question on assembly. I remember seeing the chart. I mean, there's a lot of community builders allocation. Was any of that for to be managed in a similar way by the community,
Uh,
or is that all
yes.
kind of
No, no,
managed
no,
by
no. Let
outside?
me think about assembly. There was community DAO allocation. Community DAO.
Oh,
Not specifically defined, but yeah,
mm,
there's potential also. Mm, yeah, some stuff lying around in the future. Yeah, so then
sure.
you
Okay.
could even then have, let's say, a third um, a third pot, a third potential rule set or whatever.
Right,
So yeah,
right. Okay. No, it's definitely something to think about. I think you're right too. Like, you know, easily the tiers could be changed based on different valuations of the treasuries,
yeah,
and in the specification has that like this is the focus of our spending, and that could certainly change, would be very different between the two networks. So yeah,
yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah. Makes just for me, it would make sense to have it. Just have the freedom of the community to say, okay, cool, this was a good year, but maybe next year we do something a little bit different with the IOTA funds than with the Shimmer funds or whatever. Um, if you wouldn't have two different docs or rule sets, um, yeah, there would be a point in the future where then anyway it would have to be created. Well, as soon as there
Hmm.
is the wish to have something a little bit different, you would anyway then need a second doc or a second specification. So maybe just start it from the beginning and then it's easy.
Hmm. Hmm. Indeed.
Yeah. Okay. So and then what else here? This was basically about the name. Um, or was there more in this first paragraph? I mean, basically the name is already changed. It would just be updating the specification so that it reflects the reality. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where sometimes it's a little difficult when explaining it to always have to denote like there's a
Yeah. Yeah.
Shimmer
Yeah.
community funds, and then there's the Shimmer committee, but then became the Tangle, and so just make it easier. I
Yeah.
think more understandable.
Yeah. And then
Um,
you have this paragraph that says diddle 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 diddle. This is this one. This is the original
yeah,
specification. Um,
correct.
and did I make a comment here? No, not there. You say particularly the last sentence indicates very clearly that the committee can only operate and steward the received budget for that year. The problem with such a strict statement is that it hinders the community from voting to give additional treasury funds to the committee throughout the year. This means the community decided to use the community funds for additional funding later in the year. There are certain instances in which these funds may need to go through the Marshall Island DAO. Additionally, any edits and changes to the specification will cause a revision of the operational agreement according to the Republic of Marshall Islands. Constant modifications can cause minor costs to occur. Okay, and so you would actually say you would rewrite what was my comment here. To update this so that it is more clear that you can
I think
receive
just more.
any kind of
Mhm.
funding. Yeah,
Well, and also like let's say again, just for an example, soon tokens or audit tokens finish their vesting period, and depending on, I
yeah,
think each year the community would say, "Hey, no, we want to keep those," or "Sure, hey, the committee sort of uh, through their actions got extra assets. Let's let them keep managing those
yeah,
assets the next year." And it's not like, "Hey, just Shimmer tokens." It's
yeah. I mean,
just more broad.
you
So,
could even receive donations or whatever. You never know. I mean, basically, you're
oh,
right.
that's something.
Yeah,
That's definitely something that I have a donation. We haven't received any, but I think at some point, especially after EVM goes live, I mean, that is something that I want to
yeah,
start pushing,
yeah, and
because we should be able to, you
yeah,
know.
and it
Uh,
should be
and I think
reflected
there are people out
in the specification like this. I fully
there. Mhm,
agree here.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. But you make a
Um,
good point too. Should the annual vote fail, the committee has to dissolve. Yes. What happens if no vote happens? That's a good point because the vote is only for 1 year.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, this was my thing.
so
So
I think,
basically, what happens if we just all forget to do a vote? um, um, we haven't clearly I mean, currently, yes, currently it is defined that generally the thing is over after a year if there is no vote or no decision present to continue. Um, if
yeah,
if we would change it to this, annual funding. So it would actually still, I
you're
mean,
right.
it would still basically finish because there isn't any new budget. I mean, potentially there would be still some budget left and you could continue spend it, but I mean, it doesn't matter. And I actually think it's good like this. There isn't the need to specifically say it's over
Well,
after a year. Um,
well, we could
but yeah,
change it to the committee receives operational approval and annual funding budget for 1 year after an annual community governance vote, which would mean, yes, after 1 year, if there is no vote, then the committee would not be able to fund anything. The treasury would not be operational. And then there would have to be a community vote, as in to continue or dissolve, because if we dissolve it, we would have to pay taxes on any income earned if there was income earned, and
yeah,
then move all that tokens back to the community Shimmer wallet, IOTA Shimmer wallet,
mm,
whatever. Um, that is one thing. I did get confirmation from both my DAO and Paulo, our legal representative, that 100% we can make investments, we can make income as long as we don't disperse it to anyone, such as in form of profit disbursement. However, if the community was not to approve the treasury another year, the Tangle DAO LLC would have to be, if they said, "Hey, we want you to dissolve the Tangle, we don't want to spend $5,000 every year to maintain it." To
yeah,
dissolve it, if there was profits, all of a sudden that's considered the disbursement.
mm,
So then we would have to, I believe, pay taxes on that and then disperse that back
yeah,
to the community.
yeah.
So not impossible, but it would have implication for
Yes,
sure.
yes. And then this my comment I made here basically because in below here you're talking a lot about stewarding. I just would
So
that's maybe
this was
my
like,
German thing, because for us Germans, it's stewarding is, for me, it's not a really clear defined word. Yeah, you can interpret a lot what does stewarding mean. Yeah.
well, and I was trying to figure out, like, let's say the community, let me think here. Let's say the community said, hey, we have an emergency. We need to just shooting out, just total example. We have to pay Hans his salary for whatever reason so he can finish IOTA 2.0. So we want to take some funds from the Shimmer community. We want to liquidate it, and then we want to pay Hans. But you can't really do just, hey, we're going to send funds from the Shimmer treasury to Hans, because it's actually going to like a person or an entity. To have that legal protected for the community, it would have to go through an LLC.
Mhm.
So there's already an LLC with liability protection in place. However, that's not saying, hey, we're going to give you guys money to the committee. Do as you have been doing, funding grants. It's like, we're going to give you these funds, but this is what we want the funds to be used for. And as long as it's legal
Mhm.
per the LLC, per Marshall Islands, I don't know what other word would be used for that,
Yeah.
to say, like, rather than having to
Yeah. I
change the operating agreement
Yes, yes,
and
yes, yes. I know what you mean.
as directed by the
I think
community.
a good word for this would be something like um, a purpose-driven allocation or something like this. So basically, they give you, or you get some funding for a specific meaning, which is not grant giving. So for a different meaning, like you said, okay, paying salary or donating to charity or whatever. So the community could make or let's say purpose bound allocation to the treasury, and then you could basically just, for me, this stewarding sounds like, I don't know. That's something people on a cruise boat do. Uh, but
Sure.
so yeah, maybe purpose bound allocation would be clearer, because then the community or whoever would need to specify by in the way
Right.
when they give the funds to the community for what specific purpose this should be used, and then you have a purpose-based uh, grant or purpose-based receiving of funding, and you are therefore bound by this purpose what you do with the funds.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe.
Which if the community was to, let's say, make some community vote, it would then have to be in the vote. We would assure that it's legal and approved by the Marshall Islands LLC, and then that would then go through the phase 3 vote, and then
Yeah.
um,
It
with
was
that
just, for me,
specification.
it was more about
That makes
the wording. You know,
sense. Sure.
I try to, which we should always try to avoid. So if you give this to Paolo, he would say that's not something that would stand in the court, you know, because yeah,
Sure.
stewarding is very vague, specific, and everybody can think about something different. What stewarding means. Yeah. Okay, then it goes on about the specification for tier funding based on the market cap of Shimmer token. So we basically have a low tier for when Shimmer is below 100 million market cap, as far as I remember, and we have a normal tier. Basically, as I see it, you propose to skip this and have just one tier independently of
Right.
the valuation of the network, and trust basically the committee members um, uh, that you are executing common sense and don't blow out
Yeah.
all tokens if the Shimmer price is crashing down to a cent. But yeah, don't have this enforcement here, which, yeah, I mean, I fully agree. This was all kind of, we wanted to be super safe, super secure, super,
Yeah.
super transparent and everything. But yeah, I think fully agree with you here. It's kind of just like change it to something that is easier to understand for everyone, for the committee, for the community, for grant appliers also, because they also, yeah, I mean, you have different requirements for the different tiers and things. So I think it's also difficult for projects that apply to figure out which rule set actually belongs to their
Right.
grant. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, we I think we can still have in there, it would just be simplified. No grants are given out as long as the market cap of Shimmer is below 50 million. So there's still that protection.
Yeah.
But having the low and regular, yeah, it just makes
just
it
makes things complicated. It doesn't add real value, or it hasn't shown to add value. Yeah, and I think that's the good thing.
right.
Now we have like 4 months of operation, and you clearly saw that it doesn't really help anyone. So why not make it easier,
Yeah.
simpler, and more realistically?
Mhm,
Yeah, cool.
mhm, mhm,
There was anything else here? No, this was basically just about removing the tier
mhm,
thing. Yeah.
mhm,
Next thing is the updating evaluation scoring system from basically this table that we ripped from some other projects and adjusted a little bit, which, like I said,
mhm.
always it was definitely surely a good starting point. Um, but I actually love to see how this has evolved. Yeah, Finanzgoblin and you guys have came up with a clearly better and clearer scoring system that is more tailored to what we do and what we need. So I'm
Mm,
fully for changing this to what you propose here. Yeah, absolutely cool. Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. I think, I mean, in the end, if this comes up to a proposal in the governance forum, anyway, people will discuss it. Community will potentially have some ideas and how to even maybe potentially
Mhm.
make it better. So there's just something, put it out there, see what the response is. But for me, that sounds like the way to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it's like I said, it's just used as a guide. It's not like fixed in stone. Um, then budget thing. Um, this is also a good point because absolutely true. We didn't account for any specific administrative costs. Yeah. So I don't know why. Maybe potentially we just didn't really think it through. Yeah, we just forgot about it. Maybe
That's
to have an, I don't know, like I said, like a pocket money of 25K or 50K for expenses that are just there. You have to pay lawyers, you have to pay service providers, website, thing.
right.
We didn't allocate any funding for this, and I think the way you are proposing it here is that you basically at the end of 1 year, the committee lead makes a proposal or proposes a budget for this cost for the next year, and
Yeah.
then basically sets in the proposal for the next year, there would be already a budget allocated for those costs based on the experience of the year before. And yeah, between 25 and 50K for all the things makes absolutely sense. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, it's saying, we can look at it and we could look at all the running costs for the salaries. We could look at, what the website's going to cost and what the annual management fee for the Marshall Islands, etc. But then there's always going to be unknown costs. Like no matter how well anyone plans, there's going to be
Yes.
some unknown costs, as well as just simply, you know, little things like we needed that bot tracker. I mean, we just didn't even think of that because we weren't even planning to communicate yet whether we're going to be in Discord or not. But the specification is kind of set up where, yeah, we don't have a freedom to just say, hey, we kind of need this, and of course, always done in transparent way. But instead, we kind of had to do like a request for proposal and have someone. So yeah, just having something like 25 to 50,000, which would be proposed in the annual sort of 1 year extension, whether
Yep.
that program lead or the next program lead. And then there's a little freedom there. And it's like one thing I think would be fun too is offer just a little freedom to the committees. Like, let's say for the community said, hey, I think we need a new logo. Then we could create a bounty system and we can get the community interactive and have a little fun with it and offer something. Maybe we'll pay $4,000 for a new logo and have like a competition where the community votes, etc. But yeah, however, everything of course would be done transparently, recorded transparently. So if anything seems, not done, whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
the community sees it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, good point. Good point. Um,
And this does also, like, if we were going to do this, let's just say, I don't know, who knows, August, September, whatever. And it could be adjusted, but then just kind of putting some money in to do this for the rest of the year because
yes.
the
You
legal
already,
costs are getting a little
yeah, you already
higher.
have,
Um,
mm,
and that's because we're creating sort of contracts that we didn't think about in the beginning, like a grant receiver contract that
yeah,
protects the treasury and the grant receiver. And also I'm going to have him create part of that grant receiver contract, if this was to pass, would be to create contracts specific to sort of the Tangle DAO acting as a positive VC, which is a point later in this
yeah.
sheet. So, yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Next point, I think we also talked already about that, and that's also a good point. Currently, the committee is absolutely limited in what it can actively do. Yeah? So I was basically just in a position of sitting and waiting for grants to come in and then come together and think about if those grants are adding any value to the ecosystem, if they should be funded, yada yada. Um, and I fully understand you guys would like to get a little bit more active, involved, and getting a bit creative in ideas of what you think could be useful to fund, to spend money on, or also to ask if somebody would like to come up and build some things that you think are useful for the ecosystem. And so there would be a way for you that you can create RFPs, yeah, requests for proposals, um, put them open in public, and then you will collect the proposals that come in under this RFP and make then a decision if there is something feasible coming in and which of those things should be funded. Is that
And
correct?
maybe I should articulate it a little better. Like we would write an RFP, but then we have the opportunity to actively go and reach out to people. So
Yeah.
I think what I'm finding is sometimes people just don't even know about the Shimmer network. I happen to just randomly call, Denver, Colorado seems to be a growing place. And I saw some ad online and just had like a meeting with someone there and they knew about IOTA, but they didn't know about Shimmer. So I know Antonio talks a lot about, and other people talk a lot about how like hackathons is something that they wish the Treasury can support, but then we're not getting any hackathon grants. So I think in this instance, let's say if we hear about at the committee, like a lot of people saying like, hey, we think hackathons are really good. Um, and that's a common thing. And then we could say, okay, hey, let's try this. Maybe let's do one. Let's see what kind of data we get back from that. Does it help? Does it bring on any developers? Does it, support the ecosystem? Okay, let's create an RFP, and then we would probably go out to a few different hackathons. Let's say managers or find individuals or whatever that could put one on, and then seek them and ask them to submit a proposal to this RFP. But again, what we want to avoid is, let's say someone like having a buddy and says, "Oh, hey, if you put this grant in, we'll fund your grant." So it always has to be transparent, always has to be public. Minimum of 30 days that RFP is public. And then if multiple RFPs, let's say multiple grant submissions come in for that RFP, of course, we'd have to review them all fairly. And if there was any conflict of interest, that's always part of the specification anyways. It couldn't, it would have to be shown. So this just gives us to be a little bit more active role in networking, reaching out. I mean, we're literally paid to do this, so might as well.
I would
yeah,
have
that's
I
kind
would
of
have
the
one potential addition or idea around that, because
Mhm.
yeah, clearly that's good for you guys to be pretty active. On the other hand, somebody could say, okay, so you're creating your own little wish list, how to spend the community funds, yeah, based on your own preferences. Let's say it like this. How about instead of you guys doing kind of a pre-selection, what kind of RFP you want to put out, um, go with a couple of ideas into the community and involve them in this process. Something like, okay, we have for the next quarter, what kind of RFPs, what things or what topics do you community think we need to do? What would you like to see as kind of grants? I don't know. You put up maybe 5 different things. Like you said, okay, we could seek out for hackathons. We could seek out for marketing ideas. We could seek out for blah 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 blah. And then because this would maybe potentially also get a little bit engagement in the community around the thing, have it in the governance forum and have just like I don't know some polls or things like this. Yeah, so a little pre-vote where the community could decide,
Mhm.
okay, all right, next month there's going to be 100K allocate, or next quarter there will be 100K allocated for for doing an RFP for especially for hackathons. Yeah, because that's
Mhm.
what the community would like to have. Yeah, if they want to have marketing, then yeah, then you guys seek out for an for marketing. So this would likely, because then you would have to
No, I absolutely like.
lay out your ideas a little bit behind that, because then this would very likely help the acceptance of the thing, because otherwise it could be really like, oh look, the guys they're starting to have their own ideas and they're just create their own
So
things. Yeah.
I really do like that idea, and I just trying to pull something up here, and I think. And I've thought about that, and I just wonder, like, okay, where does that vote occur? So I'm just going to look at
Mhm.
something like the last kind of community vote, because I'm always wondering that how to get the community consensus. So that's not bad, actually. So I recently did that vote of how how should we manage the Shimmer community, the community funds that aren't in a Tangle DAO LLC Marshall Islands. Should it be like the community plans, hey, let's spend this much per year, and then after that it's like an emergency, or just it's always a 50% plus one vote,
Yeah.
and anyone can kind of sort of do a governance. And so I did it on Twitter, which got 80 votes, and I did it on the governance discussion, which got 42, which is actually, I think, more than usual. So that's pretty
Yeah.
good. So the question then just becomes, do we just
Now
do it in the
now I'm
Discord,
coming.
or do we do it
Now,
Both.
I'm coming. Finally, we got a proper use case for snapshot. Well, what the fuck? Why
Okay.
not?
Yeah. That's good.
EVM live, we put up snapshot, and then we don't need to snap. But for stuff like this, I think it's cool. It's really just like a temperature
Yeah.
check, but it's you can't spam it with Twitter bots and stuff like this. And it's based on just
Right.
like if you hold tokens, feel free to vote. Go. This
Right.
might be fun. This might be
I
a
think so.
good
That's
thing.
good. I
Yeah.
like it. Okay. Cool.
Cool. I mean,
Um,
just like an idea. I mean, we could also work without that, but maybe it would be a cool way to get the community a bit more engaged in the whole thing. Then they also have. I mean, they have more the thing of this like, okay, that's our grant committee. We have a little bit. I mean, yeah,
right.
we don't wanna review 47 grants all day and week, but yeah, having like every couple of months a little bit potential to steer the direction in a specific way, yeah, maybe a really cool thing for them.
The that actually brings up that thought I had, and I didn't include it in this. I need to add it, but it was how to include the community more and get them active. And one thought was that like the committee can decide one how much and then what grants fall under that are archived. So
Ah,
anything
yeah,
that we don't fund
yeah,
but we archive, meaning, hey, if we had more money, basically, we would fund
hmm
some of these, but we're not declining it. And then I was thinking maybe it would be cool, especially when we have tally, or it could be snapshot, whatever.
yeah,
We say either once every 6 months or one quarter, we go through the archives and we say, hey, community, these are our top 5 archives.
hmm
We have 50,000 to spend that we've held back. Why don't you guys decide
yeah.
who gets this
Ah, this
50,000?
is also a good
Kind of,
idea. This is also a really cool idea, I think. It could even lead to some
yeah,
surprise outcomes. I think like, I mean, if
right.
maybe the community just likes some of those ideas or project, even if they haven't made it into your choosing, because yeah, there are maybe
Hmm.
some flaws, or of course there might be also some things overspending. I think you should then still add some, let's say, add some committee's opinion on why you wouldn't choose it. Just like a neutral observation that highlights maybe also, okay, guys, like this is just like 50% more expensive than we have seen it everywhere else. Um, but yeah,
Hmm.
that would be a cool thing. So you have the archives, and then you
Hmm.
basically community can pull up some things again from the archives, and yeah,
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, add it somewhere. I
cool.
think that
I'll add
that's
that.
that would be a nice, also another nice way to have the community a little bit more involved.
Yeah, cool. So I'll add to this passive requirement some system of voting for the RFP per month or something per
Hmm.
sprint. And then also I added to include in the lessons learned something about the every quarter or every 6 months
Yeah,
to create some sort of community vote
yeah,
for a
yeah,
archive. Yeah,
yeah.
cool.
And then maybe something like, okay, I mean, you're five people in the committee. Maybe every one of you creates one RFP idea. You don't need to tell which
Mm,
idea was one, which was, but yeah,
mm,
or something like that. Or maybe make three and then let the community choose one of the three, something like this.
hmm. Okay, that's a good point too. Yeah, I like it.
Okay,
Let's see, what's that about?
cool. Then we have another. Is there much more? I think. Oh no, we were nearly. We can make it through. So the current
Too much.
framework does not allow for the committee to invest and earn yield on the treasury throughout the year. It does not give any responsibility for the committee to earn a yield on the treasury funds. Um, you are in a passive role and have to wait for proposals to come in. Um, this impacts negatively because the funds sit there throughout the year and can't do anything. You can't also support liquidity for DeFi. Things like this are currently not part of the plan. Let's say it like this. Of course, there are risks in attempting to earn yield. Yeah, it's DeFi. It's a new thing. There could be some issues, but I agree that likely the positive effects, not 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 absolutely for, let's say, the amount of funding available in the pot of the committee, because potentially you likely won't even make a big win with this thing, but it can help, of course,
Right.
the ecosystem, because the liquidity is an important thing, especially in the first couple of months. Everything is super important, so that those funds, instead of sitting in your wallet and doing nothing, could potentially just help the whole ecosystem to get to a more stable and liquid state. Um, yeah, this this would work.
Yeah.
And like you said
There's a lot
here,
of positives.
yeah, and
There's a
we
lot of
have,
positives aside from just earning yield, but even having it in sort of a liquid pair like USDT or IOTA
yeah,
with Shimmer, not only would earn yield, but if, let's say, we couldn't liquidate per our liquidation policy, and we could always just pull a little bit out of the pool, and then we'd have our USDT to do grant payout, or
yeah,
IOTA, which has more liquidity.
yeah.
So there's a lot of benefits all around, I think.
Mm,
But as there is a risk, you wouldn't want to allow the committee to just all in, you know.
yeah.
So I was thinking, what kind of percentage of maybe the annual treasury um, would be a safe that the committee could
Mm.
invest, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but there's one thing, of course, just from my understanding, of course, basically, I mean, we likely assume that the budget will be used throughout the year. So towards the end of the year, you of course will have to pull out things from liquidity to give them out as grants or
Yeah.
from DeFi. Yeah. So in the beginning of the thing, you can have a nice amount, but theoretically, you would have to say that whenever you pay out a grant, the same amount you will have to also reduce from your DeFi spending, so that you keep this 50-50 allocation. Then towards end of the year, it would all go towards zero in both pots. So the investment pot and the grant pot would come down. Or basically, likely you would at one point
I mean,
finish the
I would.
investing and give out the rests as grants, depending how much requests you get in. Yeah.
I mean, I would kind of leave it a little broad and let the committee,
Mhm.
have the freedom. But I think like setting like, hey, from the beginning of the year, you can invest 50% of the treasury. So if the Shimmer is, just for example, 10 million Shimmer for the year, then the committee can invest 5 million Shimmer. Now, theoretically, probably the best way would be at the beginning of the year, the committee allocates such investment over a period of time, and that investment is sitting there, and then will be pulled out towards the second half of the year, slowly. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think set an requirement that it has to always be even. Like if a grant
No,
says
no.
paid out, you have to, you know what
It
I'm
just should be avoided that you guys decide, oh, it's
saying?
basically better to keep the money in earning yield than giving out grants to projects. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah. No,
yeah,
no, no, no,
yeah.
no. I think that the only concern would be is that, and it would be management, is that we are pulling out the pool without affecting
Yes.
that application or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
ecosystem.
Surely
Oh,
you don't want to kill an LP pool just by you say,
yeah,
ah, like, okay, let's pull out our 50% of the pool
pull
now
50% out.
tomorrow, just without noticing
Yeah,
anyone. Yes, yes, yes. There
right,
needs to be
right, right.
some sensitivity in it. Yeah.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, okay, so you would
Mhm.
basically propose 50%. Um, Still, I think we should I agree. It is a good thing to do. I just would like to think this a little bit more through if there are potential. I don't know. I know we don't have it yet, but likely because there are also some insurance, some DeFi insurance things available out there. I would hope that we get something like this to the EVM and things like that. So basically have some real safe deployments in place here.
Mhm.
That there is no mess happening. But Richard and Kovai, I'm sure they know this stuff. And I didn't even. I
Yeah.
think I even isn't no Audit One doing something like in this direction? Aren't they doing this insurance
I
thing?
know their initial focus, I believe, is insurance on the smart contract, but I think that their insurance pool will expand to other,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
And
if there's
there's
demand for
also
it, I'm sure they'll support it.
there's also in the other ecosystem there are also yield insurance protocols and things like this. Um, might be anyway there are anyway interesting use cases there. So I hope we anyway get
Mm,
something of this stuff coming over once the EVM is going on, and then it would be maybe worth to look into this stuff. But I trust, yeah, Richard is like living in the middle of all this, so likely he knows some stuff there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of, just to give an idea, like I was talking to all the DeFi owners for months, just figuring out how we can support them because when Shimmer takes off, DeFi's the focus. If the snowball effect takes off, then all those people will come and they'll build because there'll be demand for it. And then, of course, they'll make profits. And that's, the economics behind everything. Um, and I couldn't, again, all the DeFi owners were like, you just need to provide liquidity. You need to provide
Yeah.
liquidity. So I was
Yeah.
racking my head around how we can make this work with the framework. But once I kind of decided like, okay, should we do this? Should we provide liquidity? Can we make it work? And then I go to Cowie and and Richard, and they're always like any DeFi thoughts or let's say actions or always goes through them. I mean the entire committee, but they're definitely the experts in that
Mm,
space, so it's cool.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it's nice to have them on there for
Yeah.
sure.
All right. What else do you have here? The possible extras for this is the stuff about the if somebody offers some tokens. Blah 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 blah
Right.
blah.
And basically, this is allowing us to asking the community to allow us to be a little bit more flexible in how we structure a deal. So, if someone wants to if give back to the
Mm,
treasury, or if we see a situation like Sooniverse, for example, where we're like, hey, you guys did a funding round. We just don't feel comfortable about giving you free money. But you're 80% of the network right now use. It would be really bad if something happened to you guys. So we want to support you as EVM's a bit delayed. So we want to support you, but we can't just give you money. We need something back, And that situation they showed was, hey, we have the liquidity, we have the money, we just can't get to it because
mm,
there's no liquidity. Okay, hey, we'll be the liquidity buyer right now or provider. So let's do an exchange for Soon tokens. Now, we also heard the whole build thing under NDA, and we thought, hey, this will probably benefit the treasury and give them an asset and help the ecosystem. We could even take that even further, though. This would allow, if we decided that, hey, we want some equity, as a VC partner. If someone came to us and said, we want to give you the same thing that early VCs have, as long as it's legal and per the Marshall Islands, again,
mm,
we can make profit. It's just we get to set those terms because then we can say, maybe we actually want to act as a market maker. Let's say Shimmer does a 10x and we want to support the ecosystem. Rather than a market maker basically making profit at the end of their contract and taking that profit out into another ecosystem to make more money, we would take that profit and keep it in the ecosystem, and then go back to supporting more projects. If, let's say, we thought, hey, let's help this project and we're going to get their tokens at the same time, maybe a VC gets those tokens, and once the launch happens, they dump on everyone and they take the profits and they go on to the next ecosystem, whatever. Well, one, we wouldn't be dumping, because the even if we were to make less money but protect the community, that's going to be what we do. As well as, if we do make profits, then we support more projects by funding more projects, and then that's actually the customer base of the project itself that gave us the tokens, which we made profit of. So it's this circular ecosystem effect. But the current specification just kind of limits how we can create those terms and those deals. Doesn't mean that we don't just give out funds there to a project. It just means that we have the opportunity to be flexible and create those if we seem it necessary.
No, that sounds
Yeah.
cool. Sounds good. Good idea, I think. I think that's it from your lessons learned, Doc. Yeah. All in all, really a lot of cool stuff, a lot of important things to update, I think. So yeah, so this, I would really think about putting this up for a proposal over the next weeks. Like I said, potentially with even I would actually put that whole thing, yeah, into a decision. Maybe we could even combine combine it into one proposal. Well, let's think about it. I mean, because then we have to give you guys
Well,
the obligation, or let's say the not the obligation, but the responsibility or the potential to steward also the IOTA tokens. Still thinking. I was actually thinking, because I mean we did the burn versus build vote, yeah, and so the actual decision in the burn versus build vote was that the IOTA tokens should go to a DAO to give out grants to support the ecosystem. And so my thinking was basically, actually we have already voted to give the tokens to the DAO. Now we have a DAO, there is a DAO, there's a committee, there's actually everything in place. Would we even need another vote that says, yeah, okay, give the tokens that we have decided to a
my
DAO, give it to the DAO? Or will we just basically just
my
do it and give it to the DAO?
my personal opinion, this is just my personal opinion, and I did step away from being active in some of the discussions for a time period, because things were just kind of on hold and wait for a while. I always took it as the burn ver build was build. What are we building? We're building a system in which the community can then decide what to do with those IOTA tokens. Personally, just me personally, I would like to see it as a vote, and we as a community here in these groups can decide on, what do we want to do with those tokens. I mean, it makes sense to give it to the Tangle DAO, because you already have the infrastructure in place. But like you said, do we want to use those tokens in the same manner that we're using the Shimmer community? Shimmer community, I always took as we were testing to see, does this work? Let's test this out. If it works and the committee works and the specification works and the tokens are protected and it's helping the ecosystem, then sure, boom, let's go on and do that with the IOTA tokens. I think the question is initially, how much, and should there be anything different from the current Shimmer specification? Kind of like what you were saying, like a different specification. And I think the only difference should be, what's the focus?
What's the focus? I
Maybe
think for
look
the
at the focus.
start, maybe really like this. Yeah. So basically we do a vote that says, okay, this would be the specification for the IOTA part of the grant committee. Maybe we also define, I think we should define a first budget for the first year, or let's say, because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise, I don't think we would need to put the whole 55 Ti in one,
Yeah,
directly into the hand
I don't
of the. You won't spend that in a year,
the commit.
so no need. So there would be basically just a vote that says, okay, give the committee 5 Ti or 10 Ti for the first year from the whole IOTA pot, and let them operate under this specification, which is basically a copy of the Shimmer specification, just with a little bit potential different focus on IoT, industry adoption, yada yada things. But let it run under the same umbrella with the same committee, and then basically when the first year is over, potentially we could even say, okay, start it like this, and then once the once the once the first vote for the first year is on, then anyway we'll also put the IOTA thing again, so that we are on the same time frame, that they are aligned together, so that basically this is one thing, and then there in the end will be only one vote that potentially makes the decisions for both pots. Something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Something, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, would you want to do this with in correlation with the main governance,
Yeah. I would.
including the EVM? Is
Yeah.
that, do
Yeah.
you think that will go in the next month, at least start in the phase one period?
Yeah. The EVM thing.
Just so I can get a timeline.
Yeah.
Work
Um,
on the,
I'm like waiting for Dave because they're so fucking packed with this EVM stuff. Um, we could keep it a little bit broader open. So I was thinking about making it not super specific, in
Mhm.
determining it, basically naming all the things and all the parts specifically, which would be a very technical proposal anyway and difficult to understand. Um, so I'll see if I
You
could
know,
frame it a little bit easier, so that we would have even options to adjust some small things on the back end technical basis. Yeah, something like that.
yeah, and I think most of the discussion will be phase one, not really about the technical aspects
No,
of it,
anyway,
but
yeah.
rather the larger idea of it.
Yeah.
And then at phase two, if the technical aspect isn't all solidified, then can be put in at that time.
Mm,
So okay, so I'll start working on basically I'll fork the specification and start kind of doing updates and at least getting it ready, and then
yeah.
I'll
And I
shoot
also
for like a two. Maybe we can
I'll start preparing, definitely preparing the thing for the IOTA tokens. Because anyway, I mean,
Mm,
if we anyway do a thing now, um, and doesn't matter actually when IOTA EVM goes live, but if we have this decision already there, then it doesn't it yeah, we won't have any waiting time anymore, because once the IOTA tokens are available, bang, the vote decision will get executed. Things start to roll. Yeah, there's no delay and voting and delay time anymore. No vote need to happen. The vote has happened. Things are decided, and then the outer tokens will be in the Marshall Islands, basically a budget will go to the committee. Um, they'll move
right.
then in the smart contract, but everything basically will already be prepared, and we just have to execute once the EVM runs.
Yeah, cool.
Well, well, that sounds very well. And in the meantime, once our EVM here is live, then we'll start deploying and testing some of those governance contracts. play around with the community and with the group here, see that everything works fine. So it's like when I talk to Dave, it's like, yeah, it's like going to just deploy the contracts, and then it's like, yeah, okay, cool. Just deploy the contracts, and then let's
When
test
hack.
it a little bit. No, it's not going to hack, but it's just more of a bit like, because there will be, we potentially have to do some adjustments just for having a feeling of how the flow and all the thing goes. We always gonna have our little own ideas and potential. We want to do some little modification here and something special there. So better take a little bit of time to figure this out perfectly. Yeah. For Dave, it's just like, I
And
mean,
maybe
it
in the
works.
meantime,
Just,
we
we just
can
deploy and
practice
then.
with.
Yeah.
In the meantime, maybe we could do a practice with Snapshot or something, right? Because Snapshot's working on the EVM testnet.
Actually,
Is that
yes,
correct?
yes, 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 yes. It's working. Not on the new one. I have to update the chain ID. It's the only thing. But
Okay.
anyway, I mean, EVM will be there soon. So then we'll have it on the live network, and then potentially this could even be a first little cool exercise to have this RFP votey thing as a first
Yeah.
test run for Snapshot. Um, and then I agree. Potentially, we would just keep Snapshot for things like this. Yeah, so easy temperature checks, non-binding things um, that are easy to execute for the community. Um, yeah, yeah. I think for this it might really be a nice little extra tool for the governance.
Cool.
Cool. All right, my friends. Anyone, anything else? Any questions, additions?
Yeah, if anyone has any comments on these lessons learned, feel free to post them in the chat or reach out to me, or you can just speak during the meeting. No big deal. If you have any other suggestions, if you read any of these specifications that we missed, please put them up.
Yep. Well. Also, you can check the governance forum. We get very active since we have the Sealy quest now. We got a lot new members. We got a lot new Trust Level 1 members. I forced them all to come to Trust Level 1. So we have, I think, I don't know, like 200 new people flooding in the governance forum and commenting and things. It's very, very funny, very good. I wanted to activate the whole thing again a bit. Yeah.
I just looked. I saw something a couple days ago, but I didn't see all the
Yeah, no,
recent.
it's like the CD quest went out on Tuesday, and so since yesterday, it's getting really active in the forum.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Alrighty. Good one then. See you again next Thursday, my friends. Thanks for joining. Thanks for JD for preparing this doc. I think this was a good discussion. Yeah, see you all very soon in this cinema again. Yeah. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.